Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Monday Soulful Maintenance Talk. So, this is the second one, and today there is Kaya with us, Kaya Eicher. Eicher, oh, Eicher. Eicher.
Icor,
Okay.
as you
She,
wish.
okay. She is one of my, let's say, embodiment companion. We share together our long embodiment training, and we also share a beautiful retreat in the Black Forest in Germany that she was leading this winter. And I got very impressed by the many things that she did in her life, and some that were very, very meaningful for me because we share a bit we share both a story of being so passionate about what we did in our life that we get burned many times. So today she will share her story about how this cycle of stress uh, has been for her. Hello, Kaya. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, excited to be here. It's the first time that I am in an interview, so yeah. Um, so you want me to give you a little bit of and hello everybody that's listening to us. You want to have a little bit of background of where I come from and what I discovered and where I am right now? Is that your
Yeah.
question? Because sometimes I didn't hear you, you were frozen.
Okay. Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me start way back. I was into theater, into dance, clowning, running a lot. So I did all kind of physical things, which is my passion actually, working with my body. And that's one of the things. And that was also my meditation, my being in the outside world, communicating. That's a passion of mine. Next to that, I think, like everybody else, I struggled a lot. Well, that's my struggle with low self confidence and thinking I'm not good enough. And then, as growing older, and now I have to think because I lose a bit my thread. I was always doing too much, like always running too much, always dancing too much, although that was also my big, big, big passion. And I have always also struggled with a lot of physical difficulties. And the last year, for me, that was mostly like all of a sudden, it felt like somebody would pull out like a ventilation. Is that how you call it in English? And in
Okay.
half an hour, yeah, in half an hour, I couldn't do anything anymore. So I had to lie down flat on the sofa for a couple of days. Then I would get back on my feet, and actually I would restart over again of what I did before, because that was my big passion and that was also my way of dealing with some things. And I think with keeping myself so busy, I was also running away from something actually that was very important in my life, but I didn't know that at that time. I spent 20 years of therapy. And just before I told you, Julia, I think I can buy a house with the amount of money I spent on therapy. And then actually, a couple of years ago, I had difficulties in breathing, and my doctor told me to have a look into the Wim Hof breathing technique. So I did. It was appealing to me. I did a workshop, And that was a combination of breathing technique and cold exposure. And something in that was so appealing to me, although it was a very hard experience staying in ice cold water for 2 minutes and breathing the hell out of me with a lot of tears. But there was something in it that touched me. And I
Mhm.
think one thing, maybe besides other things, was for the first time in my life, I have a tool with which I can work myself to make a change in my life. And before it was more about consuming therapy and having insights and then going on. But every time it was more about just taking in instead of me doing the thing for myself. So that I think that was the start of a journey in discovering of different tools that can help me to deal with my lack of confidence, daily life, taking care of my physical issues, etc.
Uh, I'm curious about what was like. I mean, coming from the same training, we now like teach also other, and when we facilitate, we always say we learn by doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is super important. And I'm curious about what happened there. Like, what was your sensation? What happened in your body? What changed with this? Because I did the cold exposure with you. You just welcome me in this, and for me also was actually something like I felt
Mm-hmm.
different. But I'm really curious. What was that? How you can describe it?
Well, I think for me, the first time I had an ice bath, it was in winter time, and the ice bath was outside. It was in December, so even cold outside. And we had to stay about 20 minutes outside with the whole group and then two by two in an ice bath. In the ice bath, it was the hell to me. Like, I thought I will never survive. Coming out, I couldn't do any step anymore. I was like frozen. But then starting to warming up myself and realizing, I think, on first on a subconscious level, I noticed, hey, this was such a big thing for me, such a big stress, and I'm still alive. So I started using the colds to deal with a lot of stress that I did put on myself in my life, with always pushing myself forwards and going into the future. I have to, I have to, I have to. So using that cold, and when I was in the cold, using my breath to calm me down. And on that day, like the breath work was a big thing for me because I had a big release of a lot of emotions. So I think those two things, and at that moment, on a subconscious level, was what hooked me into breath work and cold exposure.
Yeah, because if like I mean we are a bit into it, so I don't want to give take for granted. But can you just briefly tell the women that are just watching us, or they will watch, what are the benefit of this kind of cold exposure, like for the body? Because there are many,
Yeah,
right? Many, right?
yeah, there are many benefits on a physical level, meaning like cardiovascular, because you train your veins to open and close, so you have a better blood flow. It gives a boost to your immune system. You have a better balance in your hormone function, and also on a respiratory level, that has an enormous impact. And to translate that into normal speaking words, for the average human being, me
Yeah.
included, you have another kind of energy level. You have less stress. Um, it can help you when you do a lot of sport. It can help you have a different kind of breathing. And for me, something very, very, very beneficial with the cold exposure is I have less cold, or I am less cold. So I'm less sick and I am less cold, because before doing that,
Mm?
I used to wear in wintertime scarves inside and I was still cold into my bones. And now I can feel the cold, but I don't contract anymore, and gives me such a huge freedom. And another benefit, I'm not fond of the summer, but since I'm doing cold exposure, summer's getting better for me.
Ah. So it's like that your thermostat is working better, right? In the body.
My whole body actually is working better, and it's not all the time. It's like it fluctuates like life does. So it's not this one magic thing that will solve everything, which I thought at the time that I started this method. But as life goes with ups and downs, also counts for me, even though I do a lot of cold exposure and breath work. And that's why also other tools came on my way, on my road, like meditating. Um, I started a couple of years ago, not knowing how to do that, and saying to myself, okay, I will just sit still and that's it, and see what happens, which was a big challenge. But anyway, I continued. And then a couple of years, I looked into the method of Joe Dispenza.
Mm?
I
Oh,
don't know
yes.
if anybody knows him. Yeah. And I love to play with his meditations, like tuning into the future, feeling how you want to be, how you like to act, how you like to think, and feeling that already in the body, as if it all is already happening. Because apparently your body doesn't know the difference between the now and the future.
The future, yes. And there is a
Yeah.
question here. There is
Mm.
how often do you practice cold exposure? Is it always ice bathing, or do you have days where you go for less than ice cold? I mean, Kaya, do you want to?
Um, well, I started off with really doing it very rigid and doing every day a cold shower, never a warm shower, and having a lot of ice baths in a week. Then I noticed that my body was protesting, and I started to do more in a playful way, feeling what my body needed. So now when summer is actually, there is no cold outside, so I do less of cold exposure besides a cold shower in the morning. And when I feel it, I take an ice bath. But it's not strict, and I stay in the cold water unless I feel I get relaxed again, and this is okay. I don't time anymore. I listen more to where I need it and how I can still enjoy it.
Yeah. And I think that a good starting point, because at the end, starting with a small step is how we arrive in the long term to the big goal, is a
Yeah,
cold shower. Because cold shower also a way to start is also just calibrating the shower, right? You don't have so you can go
absolutely.
from cold, warm, a little, hot, warm, a little more cold, and every day you can just it can be colder. And then at a certain point,
Absolutely. It depends on what you want, what your goal is, what you can tolerate. So you can start with hot and 5 seconds a little bit colder, or if you feel like you can immediately start with a cold shower. It depends on where you are and what you want. And there is no one recipe for everybody. And that's how I figured out the hard way. And that brings me to some other tool. If I may so jump from the cold to another tool I have, Julia, or you still want to stay a little bit with
Oh
the
no,
cold?
just the last thing I want to stress about these is that cold exposure in general, having to do with cold, is very good also to enhance a good stress cycle, because we just go into peak of stress, but it's very short and we just go back, and is actually good for the body because it's how we build a little piece of resilience. So it's
Yeah,
actually a good and sustainable way to deal with stress, because stress is also something that is good for the body, because it's the way we deal with life also, like, because we are alert, we are, so we, it's something that we need. It's not only like the stress is just evil, right? So cold exposure, I find that is a way to actually build in us the good peel of stress and a bit of resilience, or how to surf difficult life, because I mean
yeah.
we can't just get rid of stress, right, and think, oh, this is gonna be all paradise. It's not gonna happen. So
No, 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 no. And if I can add something
yeah.
about a cold, it is true that we need stress in our lives, but acute stress for a short amount of time. And I think the most of us, we have a constant stress level which is too high, and our system doesn't know anymore how to change from fight flight to rest digest, fight flight rest digest. So which means we have chronic stress and chronic inflammation. And for certain people it's good to throw on that chronic stress a kind of acute stress, so your immune system has to react. And but there is not only cold, there's heat, there's food fast and drink fast and sleep deprivation. There are a lot of things that can give you a kind of acute stress to make a kind of shift in your metabolism and to make you more resilient in a
Yes.
playful way.
Yes, and then everyone, then you have to find the stressful thing that you like more.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You were saying another thing that you want to share? Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I'm so passionate about since a couple of months now. So I told you I have been dancing and running a lot, and 7 years ago I started to have a hip issue, which obliged me to stop dancing and running, which was hard for me. So I had to do less and less and less and less and less. And often it was just sitting, which was really hard for me because I would love to go out and do a lot of things and run, and also running away from things. I realized on the way. So my body forced me into slowing down and doing less. And then because of that, recently I figured out that maybe I can even do less than less and even slow down more than slowing down. So I started to play with that. So I obliged myself, like, I can do whatever I want the next hour, but I do it in a very slow pace. So I was playing with pace. It wasn't about mindfulness. It had no goal. The goal was slowing down. And I noticed a couple of times I did that. I came into another state of mind. I had another mood, and I felt myself being in the action, being in the moment. And I know hear so often like, oh, being in the moment, you have to be in the moment. And I always thought like, you know, fuck it.
Yeah. Like, what is this
Yeah.
the new age thing about being in the moment?
I know if I had to look for being in a moment, that would be such a frustration. But I felt myself ending up in liking the action, liking to do the dishes, liking to clean, liking to walking up the stairs towards the toilet without running. And I realized, hey, but actually, this is what my body needs after all these years of pushing myself forwards and running into life. This is what my body needs to relax my nervous system. So I start to do that more often, like I already said, like instead of running up the stairs to go to the toilet, because walking slowly is a waste of time, and then peeing very quickly because it's a waste of time. I was doing that slowly. And I had to fight against me running and always say, no, 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 slow. You can do this slowly. You have time.
Yeah.
And I really notice my body is coming into something else. And it feels like with this tool and all the other tools together, and I will discover more tools for me because life is an ongoing discovery. Um, for me right now, this is a huge thing.
Yes. Oh, yes. So this is such a wisdom. I totally resonate with that. I think that
Yeah,
sometimes we think the rest and just is something that is so out there that we have to
yeah,
reach kind of an El Dorado and is already there. It's just,
yeah. And I realize it's already there. And you often hear talking about mindful, and for me, it's even not about mindfulness. It's about really playing with pace. And I think everybody knows what is fast and slow. So it's going about going into the direction of slow.
yeah,
And then I also noticed while doing things slow, I started to be more mindful, but that wasn't my goal. So on the way, doing things slow, I discover so many beautiful things, like feeling the heat of the water when I do the dishes, when I'm on the bike uphill slowly, I can look around me and see all these beautiful things.
yeah,
So it's for me right now it's a total win.
yes. And these things about pace is super interesting because we work, me and Candice, we work a lot on cycle awareness. And cycle
Hmm.
awareness is exactly feeling and understanding cycle so that I know at what pace I can go.
Yeah,
Because if I never know where I am at, how I can decide what kind of rhythm I can just uh, have in life? Because at the end, it's a kind of dancing, right? You can dance fast,
absolutely.
but you can also move into life. You don't have to move into life as all the time you are doing the marathon because it's probably
No,
not
I
sustainable. No.
did marathons, and I did marathons pushing myself to the edge, and I loved it, and I wanted to be fast, and I was fast. And but with going now to the total opposites, there's something to win for me there. And I do this now for a couple of months, and for me the goal is not to for the rest of my life being slow, because just last week I discovered, hey, but I feel my body is somehow ready now to do something fast again. And I was doing something fast because I wanted to.
Yeah, but yes, and it's not anymore your default pattern. And then the other thing that's I always notice is like it seems that fast is never enough. It's never enough for fast. So you
Yeah,
just and this has become something. So I'm wasting time. I have to go faster so I can squish more things. But then I squish more
Yeah.
things in my life, but then it's never enough. So how it can be? And when you start to go
And
slow, you notice
it
that it's
it
enough.
was also it was also when I was doing things fast, that was to make time in the future, and in the future it would happen, whatever that
What?
means. And I also notice now when slowing down and being in the action, there is less grasping for what might happen in the future or what might be the big thing in my life.
Yeah, it's a huge lesson. Is yes.
Oh, for me, a total huge lesson. Yeah, and it had been a hard lesson. It took me, I told you 7 years ago, my hip issue started, and it took me a long time to not fight anymore against that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thank you. It was so rich conversation. I would go forever, but I think that we have like it's 25 minutes. So, but thank you for being with us today.
you're
I
welcome.
love
Yeah,
the cold exposure with you, and I hope we're gonna meet again in Portugal, and I hope that we can do it again.
would love to. I hope this was of any use for people watching, and they can always reach out to me if they have any further questions.
Exactly, and we will drop in the comment below Kaya contact. So that's if she's
Okay,
also for the women that are in the group, the break the burnout cycle. Kaya is in the group also, so she will answer fast
good.
and not fast, slow enough. Uh,
Okay. Thank you very much, Julia, for having me.
you're welcome. It was a
Bye
pleasure.
bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice end of your Monday.
Bye bye.